Sometimes the people who once couldn't stop talking to you become the coldest people in the room. The messages slow down, the enthusiasm disappears, their voice changes, their energy changes, and suddenly you're left wondering what happened. You replay conversations in your head, you search for mistakes, you analyze every interaction. Was it something you said? Something you did? Or was it something you failed to notice? What's strange is that most people never tell you the real reason they went cold. They'll say they're busy. They'll say they're stressed. They'll say they've been distracted lately. And sometimes that's true. But often, something much deeper is happening beneath the surface. Something that has been developing long before their behavior changed. The coldness is only the final symptom. The real cause started much earlier. And the reason is hidden in a part of human psychology most people never think about. Because people rarely withdraw when the relationship is at its worst. They often withdraw when something inside them begins to change. And once you understand what that change is, you'll never look at rejection, silence, or distance the same way again. Think about a friendship you've lost. Not an explosive ending, not a dramatic betrayal, just a slow disappearance. The kind where nobody officially leaves, the calls become less frequent, the conversations become shorter, the connection slowly fades until one day you realize the relationship is gone. Most people assume this happens because someone stopped caring, but here's what nobody tells you. People can care about you deeply and still pull away. In fact, some of the coldest behavior comes from people who feel more than they're willing to admit. That sounds contradictory, yet human beings are full of contradictions. Someone can miss you and avoid you. Someone can admire you and resent you. Someone can love you and distance themselves from you at the same time. And this is where the real psychology begins. Because when people become cold, they're often responding to emotions they don't fully understand themselves. Most human behavior isn't driven by logic. It's driven by internal tensions, unspoken fears, hidden insecurities, conflicts between what people feel and what they want to feel. Imagine a coworker who was once friendly. Every morning they greeted you enthusiastically. They laughed at your jokes. They actively sought your opinion. Then something changes. Now they barely acknowledge your presence. At first glance, it looks personal, but the deeper truth may have nothing to do with anything you did. Perhaps you received recognition they wanted. Perhaps your confidence reminds them of their own self-doubt. Perhaps your progress forces them to confront areas of their life they've been avoiding. Very few people notice this. Sometimes people become cold because your existence triggers uncomfortable emotions inside them. Not because you've harmed them, because you've activated something they don't want to face. Carl Jung described a psychological phenomenon known as projection. People often attribute their inner conflicts to external sources. Instead of confronting what's happening within themselves, they unconsciously react to the people who trigger those feelings. And that's where things become revealing. Because when someone goes cold, they're not always reacting to who you are. They're reacting to what you represent. This changes everything. Think about social media for a moment. Have you ever noticed how someone's behavior toward you changes after a major life event? A promotion, a new relationship, a personal transformation, a period of success. Suddenly, the people who used to support you seem distant, less engaged, less enthusiastic, sometimes even irritated. The strange part is that they may not consciously understand why. Most people imagine jealousy as obvious hostility. But real jealousy is often subtle, quiet, disguised. It appears as emotional withdrawal, reduced warmth, delayed responses, a gradual shift in energy. The person doesn't necessarily hate you. The situation simply forces them to compare their life to yours, and comparison creates discomfort. The answer is more uncomfortable than most expect. People often move away from whatever makes them feel inadequate, even if that thing is a person they genuinely like. But that's only the first layer, because sometimes people go cold for the exact opposite reason. Not because you've risen above them, because they've become emotionally attached to you, and that attachment scares them. This is especially common in dating. Someone seems intensely interested. The chemistry feels undeniable. The conversations flow effortlessly. Everything appears to be moving forward. Then suddenly they become distant, cold, unavailable. Many people assume interest disappeared, yet something even deeper may be happening. Real emotional connection creates vulnerability, and vulnerability terrifies people who have spent years protecting themselves. The closer someone feels to another person, the more they risk rejection, the more they risk disappointment, the more they risk losing control. So what happens? They pull away, not because they feel nothing, because they feel too much. Human beings have a remarkable ability to run from the very things they desire, not because they don't want them, because wanting them feels dangerous. Most people never realize how often fear disguises itself as indifference. Someone may appear detached while internally fighting intense emotional conflict. Someone may seem cold while privately thinking about you constantly. Someone may create distance because closeness has begun to feel overwhelming, and that's when something unexpected happens. The person themselves starts believing their own behavior. The distance creates confusion. The confusion creates more distance. A cycle begins, one that neither person fully understands. This is why many relationships don't collapse because of conflict. They collapse because of misinterpretation. One person withdraws out of fear. The other interprets it as rejection. The reaction creates further withdrawal. Soon, both people are responding to assumptions instead of reality, and neither knows how the cycle started. But the real reason people suddenly go cold becomes even more surprising when you look beneath fear, beneath jealousy, beneath attachment. Because there is another force operating in the background, a force that influences friendships, romantic relationships, families, workplaces, and social circles. A force Carl Jung believed shaped far more human behavior than most people realize. The shadow, not the shadow people imagine from movies or myths. The psychological shadow. The hidden parts of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge. The traits we suppress. The desires we deny. The emotions we pretend aren't there. And here's where things become deeply unsettling. Sometimes people don't go cold because of what you've done. They go cold because you've accidentally revealed something about them they were desperately trying not to see. Your confidence exposes their insecurity. Your authenticity exposes their performance. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your happiness exposes their dissatisfaction. You become a mirror, and mirrors can be uncomfortable, especially when they reflect truths people aren't ready to face. Most people think they want honesty, but psychologically, many people prefer comfort. And when someone consistently reminds them of an uncomfortable truth, a strange transformation begins. The mind starts looking for ways to reduce the discomfort, not by changing itself, by creating distance from the source, which leads to one of the most misunderstood experiences in human relationships. The moment someone who once valued your presence suddenly begins treating you like a stranger. And the hidden mechanism behind that transformation is far more powerful than almost anyone realizes. Because what happens next isn't driven by dislike. It isn't driven by hatred. And it isn't even driven by indifference. It's driven by something much deeper. Something operating beneath conscious awareness. Something that quietly determines who stays close to us and who suddenly disappears, and who suddenly disappears. Most people spend years searching for answers in the wrong place. They focus on words, messages, conversations, specific events. They try to identify the exact moment everything changed. But human relationships rarely shift because of a single moment. More often, they shift because of a silent psychological process unfolding beneath the surface. And once that process reaches a certain point, the coldness appears almost overnight. This is where the real psychology begins. Because the shadow doesn't simply contain weaknesses. It also contains qualities people secretly admire: strength, confidence, independence, authenticity, creativity, courage. Many people suppress these parts of themselves for years. They learn to fit expectations. They build a persona, a social mask designed to gain approval and avoid rejection. The persona becomes so familiar that they mistake it for their true identity. Then someone enters their life who embodies qualities they've buried, and suddenly something strange happens. They feel drawn toward that person, inspired by them, interested in them, even fascinated by them. At first, the connection feels positive, but over time, admiration begins turning into discomfort because every interaction becomes a reminder of something missing within themselves. This is why some friendships become colder as one person grows. Not because growth is wrong, because growth creates contrast, and contrast reveals things people would rather ignore. Imagine two friends who have known each other for years. They share the same habits, the same routines, the same complaints. Then one of them begins changing. They become healthier, more confident, more self-aware. They start setting boundaries. They stop seeking approval. At first, the other friend is supportive, but gradually, something shifts. The conversations become different. The energy changes. The warmth fades. Most people assume success creates distance, but success itself isn't usually the problem. The problem is what success symbolizes, because every transformation sends an unspoken message. Change is possible, and that's not always comforting. Sometimes it's threatening, because if one person can change, the other person must confront the fact that they've chosen not to. That's when something unexpected happens. The coldness isn't directed at the person, it's directed at the discomfort. The relationship becomes associated with emotions they don't want to feel, and the easiest way to escape those emotions is to create distance. This pattern appears everywhere, in families, in marriages, in workplaces, in social groups, even among people who genuinely care about one another. Here's what nobody tells you. People often distance themselves from those they secretly respect, not because respect disappears, because respect forces self-reflection, and self-reflection can be painful, especially when someone isn't ready for it. But there's another layer most people never consider. Sometimes people go cold because the version of you they created in their mind no longer exists. Every relationship contains two people, the real person and the imagined version. The imagined version is built from expectations, assumptions, projections, personal needs. Sometimes people don't connect with who you are. They connect with who they think you are. And for a while, everything feels effortless. Then reality begins revealing itself. You express an opinion they didn't expect. You set a boundary. You disagree. You change. You stop playing a role. And suddenly the illusion starts cracking. This is where many relationships quietly fall apart. Not because someone changed, because someone finally became visible. The answer is more uncomfortable than most expect. Some people only love the version of you that serves their emotional needs. The version that agrees, the version that comforts, the version that never challenges them, the version that stays predictable. The moment you become fully human, their enthusiasm begins fading, and that's when something even deeper happens. The withdrawal itself becomes information, because how people respond to your growth reveals more about them than it does about you. People who truly value you adjust, they adapt, they remain curious, they make space for change. People who valued a role become confused when the role disappears, and confusion often appears as coldness. Yet most people never recognize this. Instead, they blame themselves. They wonder what they did wrong. They search endlessly for flaws. They replay conversations from months ago. They analyze every detail. Meanwhile, the real answer was never hidden in a single interaction. It was hidden in the psychological structure of the relationship itself. But perhaps the most fascinating reason people suddenly go cold has nothing to do with insecurity, jealousy, attachment, or projection. It has to do with access. Human beings are strange creatures. We often value things differently once they become familiar. What once felt rare becomes ordinary. What once felt exciting becomes expected. This doesn't only happen with objects. It happens with people. Attraction, attention, friendship, affection, respect, all are affected by familiarity. Someone who once appreciated your presence may gradually begin taking it for granted, not out of malice, out of human nature. This is why constant availability sometimes creates unexpected consequences. The more predictable something becomes, the less consciously people notice it. And when people stop noticing something, they often stop appreciating it. Not because its value changed, because their awareness changed. Yet this isn't the final truth. The deepest reason people suddenly go cold is far more profound. And once you see it, countless experiences from your past begin making sense. Because beneath every explanation lies a reality most people spend their entire lives avoiding. People are not only reacting to you, they are reacting to the story they're living inside. Every person carries an invisible world, a private narrative, a collection of fears, desires, regrets, ambitions, wounds, and unresolved conflicts. When they interact with you, they aren't seeing only you. They're seeing you through the lens of that story. And stories change. A person going through insecurity sees differently than a person experiencing confidence. A person carrying resentment sees differently than a person carrying gratitude. A person struggling internally interprets relationships differently than someone at peace. The same version of you can be loved, ignored, admired, resented, appreciated, or misunderstood, depending on what is happening inside the other person. This changes everything, because it means their coldness is not always a verdict on your worth. Often, it's a reflection of their internal state, a reflection they may not even recognize themselves. The tragedy is that most people never understand this. They spend years believing someone's withdrawal revealed their value, when in reality, it often revealed the other person's psychology, not their own. And this is why emotionally intelligent people stop chasing every disappearing connection. They stop demanding explanations from people who don't understand their own behavior. They stop measuring their worth through someone else's inconsistency. Instead, they learn something far more powerful. They learn to observe, to notice patterns, to recognize when distance is revealing information. Because coldness is rarely random. It tells a story. Not always the story people claim, but the story hidden beneath the surface. The story revealed through actions instead of words. And perhaps the most liberating realization of all is this. Someone going cold on you does not automatically mean you failed. It does not automatically mean you weren't enough. It does not automatically mean you were rejected. Sometimes it means you became a mirror. Sometimes it means you awakened fear. Sometimes it means you exposed a shadow. Sometimes it means you outgrew a role. Sometimes it means they are fighting battles you cannot see. And sometimes it means the relationship simply reached the limit of what it was capable of becoming. The people who stay are not always the people who understand you perfectly. They're the people willing to keep discovering who you are as you change. They're the people who can tolerate truth over comfort, growth over familiarity, reality over illusion. Because in the end, the coldest moments in human relationships reveal something few people ever understand. People do not leave your life only because of who you are. They leave because of what your presence awakens inside them. And once you understand that, you stop seeing distance as a mystery. You begin seeing it as a window into human nature itself. A silent revelation that every relationship carries two stories. The one happening between two people, and the one happening inside them. The second story is usually the one that decides everything.